Music. Music is one of the most popular forms of entertainment. But it is also a form of art. And like every painting starts on a canvas, every music starts with a note. But as we dive into the world of music, we are going to know that it's a very, very hard and difficult world out there. And I'm saying that from a smaller artist perspective. Because I see big artists like Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Taylor Swift, and more. And I ask myself, how did they make it? Because it is told that 90% of all artists fail, even the talented ones. But with that 10% possibility of making it in the industry, the results can definitely be worth it. Music was apparently discovered 10,000 years ago. And it's apparently impossible to definitely say who invented music. It is said that it gradually emerged across all cultures. And it is also likely told that early humans used sound and rhythms for communications and expressions long before written records. And this is seen as a hypothesis on the internet. But it's a good one, considering that I've definitely noticed that music has and always been around us. But as we go on, we've definitely noticed the development of music. Whether you're taking a stroll downtown or inside your car with a friend driving, there is music around the world. But inside the world of music, we have what is called musical artists that make music and sometimes even perform it out there for people to listen to. There are so many musicians out there that I've noticed that makes all sorts of music out there. And from that, they have gained publicity, fame. They've even made a profit, like a living out of their musical talents. And I'm talking about people like Taylor Swift, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Rihanna, etc. Those are some of the names who are the face of the music industry. These musicians you see here, they are knowable for their musical talents, and they have been in the industry for a very long time. Yet they don't have a big of a name as the other names I've mentioned before, who are the face of the industry.
My name's Mike Mehsikomer. People call me Mojo. I'm a musician, singer, songwriter, and I play guitar, some other instruments, but primarily guitar and bass guitar, and write songs.
My name is Vance, and I'm an indie singer-songwriter based here in St. Paul, Minneapolis, and I do all kinds of music, but I specialize in retro 50s, 60s, old soul style pop.
1, 2, 3, baby, can't you see?
Two different genre-based musical artists will be sharing their stories today about how they came across this musical path they've chose and why they're doing it.
Let's call it a day. 9 to 10, gonna boogie again.
To start off with making music, you have to know why you're doing this. You have to have a vision. Like, what is the thing that inspires you to get out there and create music for everyone?
What really drives you to make music is, number one, as a musician and a writer, you got to make yourself happy first, you know? If you're painting a picture, You want to paint a picture that you want to look at, because you're going to look at that for the rest of your life. If you want to listen to music that you write and play and perform and record, you want to make sure that it's something that, number one, pleases you first, and then hopefully the tribe finds you. If, you know what I mean? The music will find its tribe, or it'll settle, you know? So that's kind of what I enjoy doing.
I think my inspiration, there's a lot of different people and things that have inspired me. Among others, my parents, certainly, kind of all sorts of different people, and just how they wrote songs and how the music really inspired my soul, I think is the best, most concise way I can describe that, because it's a thing I think about it a lot, but explaining it can be very hard, but I think that sums it up pretty well, is that it just gets to my soul and it feels natural, and I have to put it out there for people to enjoy and for myself to enjoy.
Lonely street and heartbreak hotel where I'll be so lonely, baby.
Liam Vance, his vision focuses more on the old school indie pop genre of music, which is indie pop being my personal favorite of music. What that means is that he focuses and blends more of like a melodic vibes with his songs, along with the lyrical elements of pop music as well. And those elements is usually characterized by upbeat and very catchy melodies.
Got my mind on lipstick. Will you kiss away my cares and woe?
My parents are both professional musicians, and so I was exposed to music from the time I was 2 years old. I listened to everything from Beethoven to James Taylor to a bit of Hanson Backstreet Boys at the time I was growing up, and I just became very inspired, and I think music chose me for that matter, so I went with it, and I've been with it for over 20 years now, and I'm going to be going as long as I can.
Mojo's vision is focusing more on the acoustic side of music, which is generally why his main instrument he loves to play is the guitar. Acoustic meaning that the music is common from the natural sound of the instrument. No modifications, the natural sound is the music.
Oh geez, probably first picked up a guitar when I was 12, 13 years old. So I've been doing this for quite a long time. I had blonde hair when I started, and I got gray hair now. So I had music in my house growing up, right? My mom was a piano player and a singer, and she fancied herself to be a singer, and she had wanted a career in music. But back in her day, it wasn't allowed. You know, you were supposed to be kind of a housewife, have children, take care of the home, that sort of thing. So she didn't get her chance, and now here I'm living her dream.
Well, they'll stone you when you're trying to be so good.
So clearly Mojo has been in the industry for a very long time. And he's actually currently 60 years old is what I learned about. But his vision of music is basically the old way of making music. But as we progress in this world, there are bound to changes. And changes are constantly going to be happening, especially in the industry of music.
The music industry is constantly changing, and part of that is musical styles change. As we move from like a agricultural society, and people were living out in the country, making their own instruments. Bluegrass guys making their own instruments, and moving into the cities where things are more mass manufactured. Now you have electric guitars and electric pianos, and you have more people, so you can make bigger groups. And then just technology in general, as far as, going from acoustic stuff to electronic stuff, and now computerized. You can have an entire studio that used to cost millions of dollars in your house for like $3,000. And you can have all the access to all the preamps and instruments and, soundboards and mixers and stuff. Like I have in my studio to cut my demos. I can just sit there in my living room in my boxers and 3 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever, and mix and make music. It's fantastic.
Don't sit crying over the times you had. There's a car right next to you, and she
Among the many changes I've noticed are just how much more accessible things have gotten to indie artists like myself. I guess specifically the ability to record your own music is definitely more affordable. I remember back in the days when the old Tascam 4-track cassette recorders existed. I started using that kind of stuff, and then fast forward 20 years later, I'm working with Logic Pro and GarageBand and things that I can have on my computer. So I think that's one thing. I've noticed that there's just a lot more opportunity for people who don't easily get discovered by the big moguls and of corporate record labels and things like that to sort of become famous or recognized for their talent, which I think is all for the better personally, because there's just so much great music out there, and I think it feels like my goals are more attainable, as I think part of that too is going out and actually living the experience of being a musician instead of kind of living in the fishbowl perspective, if that makes any sense, of what you think the music industry is like.
It comes at a cost too, because you can overuse technology. A lot of people know what auto-tune is, you know, you hear it on Cher songs and some of these different songs, and it can kind of like muddy up a real rootsy sound. But so there's people that like techno, and there's people that like electronic stuff, and there's people that still like acoustic stuff. So again, make music for what makes you happy, and you'll find your happiness, you know.
From only being able to make music with acoustic instruments to music now being computerized, these are some very drastic changes that has been constantly happening over and over the years. But is this going to make it easier or harder on you to be recognized with your music?
I think that it's kind of made it both. I guess it's been easier in the regard that, you know, I have more people I can connect with, more community for like feedback on songwriting. I think the hard thing is to, like anything, be patient with the process of improving your songwriting or any kind of artistic craft you're pursuing. And it's a very hard thing for me, certainly, when you see other people's content out there on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, and you think, well, shucks, I should be making it now too. But I think the hard thing there is to remember that it's about the doing of the work, kind of like you don't see what's under the iceberg or what's going on behind the kitchen in a restaurant.
It's funny because it's a little bit of both. I notice, you know, when I'm recording music and releasing music on the streaming platforms and stuff, in theory it gets you out to more people because there's a lot of people on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube Music and whatnot. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people out there on Spotify and YouTube Music and Apple iTunes. And so it's like you're putting music into a flooded arena, and how do you get recognized, you know? The tried and true way of doing music has always been get out there in your car and just get out there and meet people, play shows, you know, form a fan base. And to me, that I don't think that's gone away. I think it got lost somewhere along the line. People are making music in their bedrooms on a laptop and then releasing it, and some get lucky and get a couple 100,000, whatever, millions of views or downloads. But I think for the majority of people, still you got to get out there in front of people. You know, there's nothing like a face-to-face, meeting somebody, shaking their hand and saying thanks.
And also to be recognized with your music, it is going to be a big learning process.
See our other brothers and sisters all the way from Eau Claire, Wisconsin today. It is amazing to see everybody here in the house tonight.
And because of that, you might need to come up with different sorts of strategies in order for you to release your music. Everyone is different, you know, not everyone's probably going to be doing the same strategies. But there are a couple of basic ones that everyone should be doing when trying to release music.
So I think one of them is consistency, and that takes on a bunch of different ideas. One of them is just to keep creating as much stuff as you can. You write songs, you make videos, you play shows. I think all of that just really adds up in the long run. I think the other strategy that I'm one to talk about it because I'm still understanding it like a lot of things, but but really learn about marketing. So figure out who your target audience is, what their expectations are for whatever kind of craft you produce, and then really try to channel their perspective, their outlook on everything, so that you're prepared to see what it is they're looking for, but also staying true to your authentic vision.
Yeah, I think it really just comes down to those few basics, you know, the fundamentals is make good music for yourself first, be passionate about what you're doing, and then try and connect with people as much as possible. And I can't stress that enough. It's really about the connection. The music connects us.
What you got us for us, man? I got you.
Yes, music connects us in a way that is just so special.
With so much drama in the LBC, it's kind of hard being Studio Double G. But I somehow, some way, keep coming up with funky ass shit like that.
And there's a lot of people that have been saying this, that luck plays like a huge role for someone's musical talents to be noticed.
2 in the morning and the party's still jumping 'cause my mama ain't home.
You know, I think there's truth to that. I think that there are other things too, or that you have content that's at the right level, that's competitive with everything else that's out there. And I think for me, like each song production that I've done, each song that I've written has just been an improvement on the last one there. I think that luck is part of it. I think timing might depend on it too. But I think the other part of it is who you're connected with, who you know, what their skill sets are, what kind of business they run.
The divine providence leads us down the paths of, no, luck definitely, to your point, you know, luck definitely plays a role. Right place, right time. I've seen it with other musicians. Band just can't work together anymore or whatever, and then the right person just stumbles into the right place at the right time, and the energy and the connection. Or a singer can't make a song sound right in a studio, and there just happens to be somebody else sitting there, and they're like, hey, give this guy a try, you know? And then that ends up becoming the jewel song. That ends up becoming the big hit, you know? So yeah, luck definitely plays a role in these types of things. And you know, a lot of people there's no such thing as coincidence. It's all part of the great plan of the universe or whatever. And so is it luck or is it that great plan of the universe? You know, I'm not sure, but I agree with you that there's certainly an element of that comes into play in these things.
But even with luck playing a role for a music artist to make it, you can't fully depend on it for your music to be heard. It comes back to the basic of creating music, and that is being passionate with it and getting it out there as often as you can, playing it for other people to enjoy. And that is coming to my next thing I wanted to talk about, and that is knowing how to face with criticism. Because there is no avoiding it ever. And how you deal with it, whether it's positive or negative, will make or break an artist's career.
So I think it's something I've had to work with too, because of my own life experiences. Getting defensive was just the norm for me at a point, which really hindered my ability to take any kind of criticism. With the help of therapy and such, I'm learning how to be present in the moment, I guess, when that happens. Because as artists, you always are going to face some kind of criticism. That's just a hard and fast rule of the journey, I should say. But so like if I receive positive criticism, you know, it's just something like, well, your songwriting is good, but the production needs some work.
Soon to have some nice lyrics to it.
If I receive negative criticism, that's where I really have to shut off that internal monologue. And like for instance, most recently I was posting videos on YouTube, doing those YouTube shorts, and that's been the place where the trolls have really tried to gnaw their teeth on my craft, and I just have to take that with a grain of salt. And my rule to all creatives whenever you get trolled is do not feed them. I wish that there was some kind of electronic poison we could give them, but that might not ever be the case. But you know, because when somebody says something like that, it's just like when people are bullied in high school or middle school. It says everything about them. It's not about you. And people are going to say that, and I think that when it happens, it's a sign that you're doing things right.
But I think personally, you can't take yourself too seriously when people are slapping you on the back and saying, wow, that's great. And subsequently, you can't get too down when somebody says, wow, that song sucks, because what song might not be good or a performance might not be good for this person, might have been someone else's favorite show.
We'll stay this we know. Destiny.
But all of that being said, being a musical artist is probably one of the most fun but very difficult things that I have to do. It's just more about using your talent to entertain your audience than anything else. And when doing a deep dive into the experience of these two musicians, I think anyone, including me, is capable of creating good music for anyone. Sure, maybe or maybe not will my journey be like Kendrick Lamar's journey, even though he's one of my idols. And that's okay, because we musicians are still more than capable to write our own unique journeys with music.
So I think my first piece of advice would be yourself. Everybody else is taken, as Oscar Wilde once aptly said. I think the other thing is to be okay with being vulnerable when you're out playing a gig or you're working on a song with somebody, because that vulnerability, I can guarantee you, is what's going to help you grow and to connect with the people that are going to help you establish your career.
Yeah, just always be writing, always be creating, always be reaching out to people, always be connecting. Just always be, always believe in yourself. Always believe you're just one. Today's the day. Today's the day I'm going to write that song that's going to make me the happiest person in the world. Other people are going to see that, and then they're going to be happy.
Be vulnerable, accept that it's a journey. You're going to be growing and having to make changes along the way.
We're born to be creators. Whether you're creating, I don't care what you're creating, just whatever it is. But in the music business, always be creating music. And don't be afraid you're a small artist in the middle of nowhere. So was Bob Dylan.
Be with like-minded people and just have fun with it, because that's what's really going to help you connect all the other dots when the time is right.
End scene.
Heck yeah.
Not yet. Yep, you do it. Rolling down the street, smoking and rolling, sipping on gin and juice. All right, erase that shit, Jeremy.